And welcome back to Caesar Man Warrior. This is another patron roster review, and this is the Real Armondz from Fury. So what's happening in Fury? Now, Real Armondz is a whale, been playing since the very beginning, has a 3.7 GP, so, really huge. As far as stats go, since he's been playing from the beginning, he's in extremely hard leaderboards. Everybody's got Treya. He's working on Treya, going to get her very, very soon, but kind of wants to know a little bit about cutting through Treya teams in Arena, possible alternative teams to what he's using, and then also ships. He's, not quite in the top 100 and kind of wants to get there. As a side note, he kind of wants to know if there's any Gear 12 characters that he should Gear 12 or zetas that he should put on. So we're going to kind of integrate the Gear 12ing and the zetaing through talking about the arena and the ships arena. So we're going to start with ships first. You're using the Chimera and you're using Biggs and TIE Advanced and the Imperial TIE Fighter. I highly recommend Biggs and the Imperial TIE Fighter in your initial three, but I do actually suggest doing the possibility of a second tank in the initial lineup, which is going to delay the ability for them to kill any of your ships immediately, and then bring the TIE Advanced in from your first lineup. And so when we look at your ships, we know that you're going to have to bring in a tank, and really my first suggestion is Sunfac, having him in your initial three. So having Sunfac, Biggs, and the Imperial TIE Fighter, and he's good enough right now that he would sit in that position pretty well. And then for your backup, you could either have the TIE Advanced come in first, or you could have it come in second. If you put the Phantom 2 in the first slot, it will pretty much always come in first, and then TIE Advanced would probably come in second. But if you're afraid of TIE Advanced not getting that first in slot, you could always put TIE Advanced in that first slot. It's not always going to happen exactly the way you want, because AI prioritizes trying to keep people alive. So if a tank dies, it might bring another tank in, or if a tank is critical, it might bring in a ship that's going to help with health and protection regeneration. Or if it thinks you need more damage dealing, it will bring in an attacker. However, putting them in your particular favorite position does help. When the AI aligns with your priorities, they'll come out in your priorities. So that doesn't happen all the time, but it does happen sometimes. So the backups that I would recommend, and you can put these in any order, but some of the backups I'd recommend is going to be the Phantom 2. Of course, this is one of the best, if not the best, reinforcement ability. Once maxed out, you're going to be able to, with Covert Strike, immediately be able to bring in another one right immediately thereafter. And so this is really powerful to flood the field. And Phantom 2 goes stealth and is hard to hit and buffs, crit chance and things like that up on your team. So just a really all-around excellent ship. And you'll obviously want to max out eventually maximum impact for the maximum impact to make sure that you're hitting hard with this ship, and then eventually move over to sights locked and finish this one off as well. Those two are really the most two important ones. If you can get the basics, then get the basics, because they will use their basic quite a bit, and the more damage you can deal on basics, the better for sure. But the most important is the reinforcement Covert Strike. The next is going to be Slave 1. I know a lot of people that initially started using it, and now it's starting to fall off of favor. A lot of people are switching it out for others, but the Slave 1 is still just a solid tanky ship that's got taunt, that can target lock on basic, and if left to its own devices, has the seismic charge and some other AoEs that do some pretty amazing damage. And in a target lock team, this is going to do you really well. Like I said, you are going to want to move, if it's my opinion, you're going to want to move the TIE Advanced into your reinforcements, and eventually you're going to want to max the Unnerving Presence out completely. With offense down and 3 damage over times, this really neuters the opposing team's damage output. It also does a lot of damage. Those damage over times do a significant amount on these ships. So I would highly recommend this go into your reinforcements with the Phantom 2 and Slave. And then there's a couple others you may want to consider in your reinforcements, and one is TIE Reaper, simply because you've got TIE Reaper pretty much, almost maxed out. You just need to basically finish it off, and if you are going to bring it in from reinforcements, you'd want to max out defensive formation, so that way it becomes a little bit more usable for you. And then the last ship is Poe Dameron's X-Wing, and of course you've got the first part of Dramatic Entrance, but get the second part. I know it's 75, it's a lot to get the Dramatic Entrance maxed out, but this is really amazing. And then, of course, the most important will be Perfect Shot, because this is where he comes in and whacks people for a ton of damage. But his basic is also pretty amazing, cover all angles, and if you max it out after you do the other one, you will get some bonus damage from that as well. So that should take care of your ships. Some alternatives for your initial 3 lineup, because I said to use a double tank combo under Chimera with Biggs and the Imperial TIE Fighter and Sunfac. The other ships that you could kind of put into that other slot would be Biston instead of the Imperial TIE Fighter. He's got a guaranteed target lock. Biston can hit through foresight, and he goes stealth, and so it makes them hit your tank for your tanks for the first couple of rounds before you have your ships start to come in. So that's kind of fun. The other thing is Ghost. Ghost is really kind of hard to kill, especially with 2 tanks present, and then immediately your Phantom 2 will come out, and as soon as Phantom 2 and Ghost are together, it's just extremely annoying with the foresight and the taunting and the back and the forth, and people can't kill one because they have to go to the other one, and then they try and kill that one, and it goes stealth, and then they hit the other one, and then it taunts. And if you haven't done it, trust me, it's really annoying for the opposing team, and by the time they fiddle-faddle and try and figure it out and can't kill somebody, your 5th reinforcement's coming in because of Phantom 2's reinforcement ability. And so, long story short, someone you could use in that 3rd slot, aside from 2 tanks, other than the Imperial TIE Fighter, other than Biston, it could be Ghost as well. And you'd be surprised at how effective that combo really is. Now let's move to Arena. And we're going to talk about an alternate team or a couple of teams that you can use to chew right through a Talzin lead, an Emperor Palpatine lead, those kinds of setups, because I know that you're going to see more Talzin leads, and you're going to see, obviously, lots of Talzins under Emperor Palpatine. So the first thing in any of these teams is going to be a Rex lead. Rex provides the tenacity up and all of the turn meter to speed your team up. That's super critical, super important, and he's really the crux to the lead in any type of anti-triumvirate team. Now the next is going to be if you're going against Emperor Palpatine-led teams. With a triumvirate, you use Mother Talzin. Mother Talzin no longer becomes viable really as that 5th slot when you're going against a Traya lead, and that we will see more Traya leads. Mother Talzin is really going to be a critical piece if you're going against an Emperor Palpatine-led triumvirate team, but if they're a Traya-led team, you're going to sub her out for someone else because her spot is going to become really a moot point once you have Traya leads. So it depends on what you're facing. I don't know all of your top 50, but more than likely there is a great vast majority of Emperor Palpatine-led teams because those chew through Traya-led teams, and so the EP is really the most popular, but you'll have to scroll through and see. And if I'm right and it's mostly EP leads, then you can go over to Mother Talzin and enter her into this team, and it's going to be phenomenal. If not, you could, instead of her, put in someone like Han Solo. He's just a massive damage dealer. He's going to help chew through those types of teams really fast, and that is important. The next piece, and this is something that you can kind of always use on any of these teams, is going to be Grand Admiral Thrawn. And the reason is Control and Fracture. You get to put one of their players on timeout while you get to then impose your will. This is super important, especially when you're facing the Triumvirate, to be able to fracture certain individuals to prevent them from gaining any of the bonuses. So Grand Admiral Thrawn is definitely has a place here. What's really cool too is you have basically every overpowered character in the game and pretty much maxed out, so you've got a lot of options. Now the next 2 slots can really go into anyone, but I highly suggest Darth Nihilus no matter what in your top 5 underneath Rex, with Rex and your Mother Talzin having Thrawn there as well, and then Darth Nihilus. And if you have Darth Nihilus, you might as well have Darth Sion as your tank. He works really, really well. Now there is some tanks you can change your tanks out. We'll talk about that in a second. But with Darth Nihilus, a lot of times when you're facing the Triumvirate, the only way to kill their Darth Nihilus is a Darth Nihilus. And so keep that in mind. With Rex, you should be able to outpace your opponent's Darth Nihilus, but if their Traya isolates your Darth Nihilus, you'll be in trouble. And so when we're talking about tanks, I did say Sion, but keep in mind if you're facing a Traya and you find yourself constantly not having your Darth Sion isolated, but you find yourself always having like your Darth Nihilus isolated because of his health gain, because she always isolates whoever has the highest health and protection pool, then you may want to bring in none other than General Kenobi. General Kenobi will make sure that he's always taunting, and he'll help soak up that isolate, especially while you're on offense and climbing, to ensure that your Darth Nihilus doesn't get isolated. And so you may find yourself having to use General Kenobi to basically take one for the team so he can take the isolate so you can get through. There are also other characters that you can sub in. So instead of Thrawn, you could bring in the Wampa, or instead of Thrawn, you could bring in Nest. And you have basically, you know, all of these tools. You've got Nest 5-star maxed out with Zeta, with great mods and fast. So Infus Nest would work really great in here if you decided you wanted to use her as a damage dealer. So there's just a lot of options. But your basic core is Rex Lead, Talzin, Darth Nihilus, probably going to use Thrawn and General Kenobi, so that way you know you can handle it the way you want. But your alternates, you could have in Han Solo instead of Talzin. You could have Nest instead of, you know, Thrawn. You could put in Scion instead of General Kenobi to have that synergy with Darth Nihilus. But either way, you have everybody you need. Just know that the Rex leads still do it. Now, I also have people that run a Commander Luke Skywalker lead Rebel counter squad, and it works really, really well versus Traya, surprisingly. And I don't know how they do it, because I've tried with my Rebels personally, and I know my mods are inferior, but I just lose every time. But a really, really fast R2-D2 with Commander Luke Skywalker and the traditional Han Solo, General Kenobi, and Thrawn, that kind of team that used to be ran in Arena. I still see them in the top 5, top 10, but they have really, really good modding. So at the end of the day, it depends on your modding. If your modding isn't as good as your top 10, you're going to want to definitely go a Rex lead like I'm suggesting. So hopefully that helps you with Arena. Now, really quick, we talked about what you should do in ships in Arena. And so the first thing I'm going to suggest is in regular character lineup, if you have somebody that you want to Zeta, you talked about you wanted to Zeta some characters. And a couple of characters that I noticed with all the different teams and all of that, I noticed there's basically 4 Zetas I'm going to suggest. 2 come out of Jedi, and that is Grandmaster Yoda. At a minimum, his battle meditation, getting it maxed out so he can use this every 3 turns instead of every 4, is phenomenal. And so definitely Grandmaster Yoda. Plus, we're really going kind of into a Jedi arena time, and so this is a counter to Traya as well. He definitely is a tool that works really, really well against the Triumvirate, so that's one that you should seriously consider. The next is actually a part of that toolkit, which is Ezra Bridger. You've got him really maxed out. So Flourish, having that Zeta on Flourish, it's amazing. Underneath Grandmaster Yoda, I've got him doing 80k, 60 to 80k on his special because of the extra damage from Flourish. So Ezra is definitely a Zeta I would highly consider. And those 2, again, are both anti-triumvirate and may give you more tools in your toolbox for Arena. You did ask about possible Hermit Yoda or Bastila. And so, I mean, they're on the bottom of the totem pole for your actual Jedi development, but you're a whale and you've been playing since the beginning. So if you want to whale out on the gear for Bastila Shan or Hermit Yoda, then great. If not, it's not the end of the world. I would continue definitely to develop your Hermit Yoda. He's just a phenomenal player, and eventually you'll have him 7 stars, and he's great. But you don't have to do the Zeta on him. And Bastila Shan, there's a lot of people that run Jedi without her, but she is definitely anti-triumvirate, anti-Emperor Palpatine. So if you were on the fence as to whether to whale out on her or not, since you are a whale, why not? She's definitely going to have viability over the next 4 to 6 months very easily, and she's going to make other events even easier. Plus, she's very, very raid viable, and if you want to do more damage in the raids, especially phase 1, this would definitely help you. Actually, phase 2 as well would definitely help you with that as well. So those are the Zetas and the Gear 12 ideas for Jedi. Now let's move to a couple other factions. First faction is Bounty Hunters. I would actually seriously consider Gear 12 in these guys for territory wars and also territory battles. And Bosk is really farmable now, and so you should definitely look at going all in on Bosk, getting him up to 7 stars, getting him up to Gear 12. And he has 2 Zetas. Both are great, but his lead is really what you need, and it's the only Zeta you need for this team to pop. So 1 Zeta away from making your Bounty Hunters go from being good to phenomenal and usable in territory wars. So I would highly recommend Bosk go into your favorites and be one of your top investments right now, and be somebody you're looking at Zetaing and Gear 12ing. The next faction is Ewoks. And the cool thing about Ewoks is you've got them basically maxed out and developed. You don't have them Gear 12 yet, although you could. These guys are going to help you in all areas of the game, including territory wars. But you're, again, only 1 Zeta away from making this team go from good to phenomenal, and that's Chief Chirpa's lead Zeta. And so because of that, I highly recommend you can seriously consider zetaing Bosk and your Chief Chirpa, and then also look at Yoda and Ezra. And if you do decide to whale out on Basilishan, then definitely want to consider her lead as well. Her lead would be the most important. She only has one Zeta anyway, so that's good. With Yoda, I would do his battle meditation, and then Ezra, he only has one. As far as a second Zeta on the Ewoks, it would be Wicket if you decided to do a second Zeta. And on Bounty Hunters, it would be Bosk's Unique after his lead if you decided to go in on second Zetas. So there's a huge amount of Zetas that you get to start playing with and decide how to cut through that ships. The last thing for Gear 12 is just anybody that's a crew member that you use on a ship in a ship's arena should be the #1 highest priority, because your arena team, you want a Gear 12, right? Well, your ship's arena team, you want a Gear 12. You shouldn't look at it any differently. Both are the same. You want max development with regular arena. Well, you want max development with ship's arena. It does make a difference on durability and damage and all sorts of stuff, and so in speed. And so I highly recommend you continue to develop. There's a lot of crew members you have underdeveloped, or you just took to Gear 11 and left, and these are individuals that you're going to want to finish off. For example, just one example, Biggs, Darklighter, you've got him Gear 11, but you could pop him over to Gear 12, add a couple Gear 12 pieces, and it increases his health and protection significantly, as it does his speed, and this is one of your base tanks that you're going to be using. So I really recommend that you finish those types of things off. Well, the Real Armondz, hopefully this gets you hyper-focused on those most important things for ships, for how to cut through Traya in Arena. Soon you'll have your own Traya and you won't have to worry about it, but all the tools I've told you about are going to help you no matter what, and hopefully you've got some focus now on Zetas and who to Gear 12. If you have any other questions, leave them in the comments down below, and keep your gaming on. Warrior, out.